Hello everyone, it's Sarah here, painting creator. For some of you, you will know that recently I've been doing smaller paintings because my energy levels are quite low at the moment. I live with chronic ME, which is moderate to severe. It's also known as CFS. It's similar to long COVID, and I really do think that it's part of the same family. I also have fibromyalgia, a range of arthritis and a spinal condition. So I live with quite a lot of complex issues in my body, and I'm recovering after a cancer operation. So there's a lot going on for me. So some days I'm all right and I can get up and about, and other days I just find that I need to be a bit more restful. And I have been painting on some small 10 centimetre square papers, and a few people said, well, I haven't got any small paper, Sarah, what can I do? So I thought I could share with you what you can do. So this is a little frame that I've got from Temu, because it's cheap and cheerful, and I know that cheap and cheerful isn't always the same, but you can get your frame and you can draw inside it, and that will tell you how much space wise you've got. This is just a piece of my usual A4 paper. It's a really good way of using your paper and what you've got. And so today I'm going to do 2 paintings on this little piece of A4 paper. That might just be using the same sort of palette or picture. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. So, but that's how to sort of separate it out. You could then put some masking tape down to keep those sides nice and crisp. And then afterwards I'm just going to cut it out. So it depends how crisp you want those lines to be. You could just take a little bit inside if you want that little white line to show, but I don't particularly. Maybe I could leave a little gap, but I'm fine. But that's how you would mask out to create your little windows into your creative soul. So I'm just going to do that and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've got these masked out now, and I've just pulled off this lovely little book that I got secondhand for a song from Charles Evans. He's a really interesting artist, and in it there's loads of ideas, so I'm going to use this as an idea for a starting point of a little windmill and some little houses. So I'm going to use that as a starter for this little one. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so we get a better picture. Move it across. So, usual rule of thirds. So, land is going to be here. I don't want the windmill right in the middle. I want it off to one side, and it's slightly domed at the top, and it's got a little walkway bit around. It's a sketch style, so we're not wanting huge amounts of accuracy, which is great because I'm not really great on drawing, but I do like painting. So little doors and windows, and And then I'm going to ignore the little house on that side. I'm going to put a few of these little houses in on this side. I'll put those in a bit. There's going to be some trees up here. And then we've got the sails to put on that are on the other side of this, so just making sure that they match up, roughly the same length. And I'm just going to put the sails on, making sure that they go the same way on the same side as they go around. There we go. I think we're about ready to go, so I'm going to wake up my paints and we're going to give this one a little paint. So I've given my cotton watercolour set a little bit of a spritz. You can see they're nice and glistening. They're not running wet, but they're glistening, and if you just wait a minute or two, they come to life and you get a much nicer pigment. I'm also using my small mop brush for this one to start with, which is from my Meaden set. Other squirrel mop brushes are fine, but a nice thing to do. So this paper's got quite a nice grain on it, so I've run the grain horizontally, and I'm just going to pick up some cerulean blue onto my palette. And I'm just going to add in a tiny bit of cadmium red light, and that'll just grey it down a little bit. Create a nice grey. I'll pick another cerulean blue. Plenty of water. And I can start just painting in this sky, just straight from the palette. I'm just going to try and go around this windmill. I'm going to go into that tree line because I can paint over it, but I'm going to go around those houses because I want to try and protect the white. Oh, sorry, that's my hubby sneezing. If you go over, it's not the end of the world. Painting is meant to be fun. Yeah, it's a hobby. It's something to be enjoyed, not something to get yourself worked up about. And remember, we're painting a painting, not painting a photograph, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to add in, using this sort of grey mix, some light grey clouds, and the red light comes out of the cloud colour beautifully. So I'm just putting in some lighter clouds around, and I'm just going to go back in and mix a bit of a darker, more pigmented tone of that. So still using my cerulean blue. And a tiny bit of the red light, not as much water. And I'm just going to add in a little tiny bit of burnt sienna. Oh gosh, that's a lot. I might have to add a bit more blue into that mix. That's better. So I'm making a nice grey. You can just see the back, the light bits of the cloud, but I just want some darker clouds too. Holding my paintbrush a little bit further down the stem, I'm just building up this bank of clouds that's just coming over, and it will help pop some of that windmill when we get there. So I'll just wash my brush, take some of the water out, and I'm just going to soften some of these clouds just so that they've got some highlights in them. And I'm not overly fussed, the painting is not about the clouds. I'm just lifting off some highlights in the clouds and then they'll soften. So you're basically making a bit of a thirsty brush. There we go. So I'm going to give that a zap with the hairdryer and then I'll be back with you. Okay, so I'm dry now. It's beautiful, bright, sort of moving sky. Not too complicated, which is nice. So I'm going to just do an underwash for the windmill. I'll just get a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of raw umber, which is like a light brown, and mix it together. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of cadmium yellow just to brighten it up a little bit, because it is a bright sunny day. And I'm just doing, oops, I didn't mean to do that one up. Just take my paper towel and lift it up, because it's fine. It's a painting. And I'm just going to drop in the bright summer's day colour onto the windmill. Wash my brush. I'm just going to soften some of these sides off a little bit. There we go, that's nice. So the sun's coming from this direction. I'm going to draw an arrow on here to remind me that the sun is here. Yeah, so the sun's coming from this direction, so the shadows are going to come across this way. So I'm wanting a more shadow colour with that, but still to stay warm. So I'm just going to add a little bit of alizarin crimson and the raw umber together to create a nice warm light brown. I'm just going to drop that in while it's a little bit wet so that the two colours mix. And it's created like a bit of an underwash. Might just do a little bit up there as well. And whilst I'm waiting for that to dry, I can work a little bit on these roofs. So I've just got some cadmium orange there. Obviously you can make it with some cad red and some cad yellow. And I'm just going to add a little bit of alizarin crimson into there just to warm it up and get it a little bit orangey. And then I'm just going to add that into the roofs. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more orange and a touch of cadmium red to make this roof, that's better, a little bit different to the roof of the side of the windmill. So it's something and nothing on those two. So I'm going to just pick up a little bit of my grey, which was my grey of my sky. And I'm going to just drop a little bit of that grey shadow colour underneath these platform areas. And then I'll darken those a little bit once it's dry. So I'm going to give it another blast on the of the hairdryer. Be back soon. Okay, that was a little blast because it's still a little bit damp here, but that's fine. So I'm going to just mix a nice green, bit of cadmium yellow into that cerulean blue. I'm just going to add some cerulean blue into there. You could mix a nice green. I'm going to put some cadmium yellow into this, which was the shadow colour. So I've got two nice sort of different bright greens. And then I'm after some burnt sienna into here, and a little bit of viridian green into there. It's a green I don't like using by itself, but it mixes really well with other colours. So I've got three quite complementary colours. I'm going to just add a little bit of cadmium yellow into here just to harmonise it through. So I've got some nice summery colours for the field. And then I've got spring green straight off my palette, which again is a nice colour. And I can drop a little bit of ultramarine into there if I want to darken it a touch. So let's put some taller trees here. Just picking up some of the greens off my palette, trying not to make things look too artificial. Maybe these are these tall thin poplar trees, I quite like them. Just like picking up some of the greens off palette and just changing the green around a little bit. Brings that sort of sense of perspective in. And they help just make, just adding a bit of orange into this one, cadmium orange. And it just makes it nice as a, oh, that's in front of that and that's behind that. And you get that sort of sense of different light and perspective. And with all things that are watercolour, you can work light to dark. So I'm just using these bushes and trees to just go around some of that. And on the front, I think I'm going to just do a nice sort of ploughed field. So it's going to radiate a little bit across. And that's where these masking tape lines help. And I can go back in with my lighter greens. And just build some nice texture on this front line, as if they've got maybe a harvest coming. Don't want it too busy because we want the windmill to stand out. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry. This time I'm ready for a rest. So I'm going to just let that dry and then I can come back to it and put some of the darker colours on and some of the shadows, and that will start standing it out a little bit. Okay, so I'm back. I've just mixed up a really light grey with a touch of cadmium red light and some cerulean. So I'm just going to darken this front. So wash my brush and then it'll just soften away around this corner. And I'm just going to darken because the light's coming this way, but this is still in shadow. So a little bit darker there. So we're after a really nice shadow colour. So a little bit of magenta or alizarin crimson and a touch of ultramarine blue will give you a really nice summery shadow colour. You want it fairly thick because you need it to show, but movable. So got that ready. So I'm going to just go in with a little bit of raw umber and neutral tint into the top of this windmill cap. Adding a little bit of yellow into the mix because this is the lighter side. Okay, and then I'm just going to do a little bit of the walkways around. There we go, that looks okay. I'm just going to darken that with a touch of ultramarine blue in there to get a darker grey, and just drop in these doors or whatever they are. And then I'm just going to drop in these sails as well. Trying not to draw too many straight lines. So we've got the basis there. I need to just do a little bit of a darker green, so ultramarine and my cadmium yellow. So bluey green for a little bit of the shadow side on these trees. Just letting my brush dance across a little bit. And just wet your brush, take some of the water out and then just soften some of those back a little bit, and just to get a little bit of a change of texture and light. I'm going to use a little bit of that to run along this edge. Just to harmonise some of that and deepen some of these furrows. It just adds, especially on these things that are coming further forward, a little bit more depth into there. darker colour. Just added a little bit of that grey that I'd done for. I like the white that I've left on there. And while that darker grey is on, I'm just going to darken some of this shadow. On these buildings, just give it a little bit of form. Okay, so shadow time. So pick the shadow colour up, that purple. I'm just taking the excess off on a paper towel, and I'm just going to overlay. So it's a shadow wash, overlaying the shadow colours and trying to get that sense of the roundness of the windmill. Take the water out of my brush and just soften it into the existing wash, and that helps just make the windmill feel a little rounder. So I'm also going to drop some shadow colours onto these sails. More under there we go. Quite like that. Shadow colour over here. I'll drop that into shadow. And I'm going to drop that as shadow underneath the barn roof and that side of the barn as well. And the buildings have got some sort of dynamic. I'm going to drop some of this shadow colour into the trees. Just layering over, maybe along that fence edge. Maybe pop a bit more of a fence in here. And then I'm going to put some of this shadow colour along here. So I've really just used one brush and a few colours to paint quite a nice little villagey scene. Quite pleased with that, so I'm going to let that one dry. And then I'm going to move on to the other one. And then I'll take the tape off and then I'll sign them both and maybe do a little bit more pen work, but I think that's quite a nice little sketch. Okay, so I want to keep this sort of sense of spring and summer coming, so with this one I'm going to just do a nice little path. Maybe, yeah, that might be better. Just coming across and I want it to sit on the horizontal a bit more, to sit it into the that's better, it sits more. Let's try again. Right, so that's better. So a pathway, and maybe we've got a nice big tree. I like trees. I think I used to go hugging them at one point. I'd quite happily be a tree hugger. I'm just drawing the main branches. I'm not getting too fussed or carried away with where it's going. Like that, because it's smaller, needs to just drop down a little bit. Yeah, that will be better with it being smaller. Just take your time. It's an impression of a tree, not, doesn't have to be ultra realistic. Because that one's gone off there, I think I might just drop that a little bit. Okay, so we've got roughly the branches of a tree, maybe another one off here. And we can put the little bits in. It's going to be summer, so I'm going to have a tree canopy bit on it. Maybe we'll have some sort of trees running off in the distance or something here. And then a bush or something coming across some of this pathway here, just to sort of break up that line. Okay, so fresh water. I'm going to stick with the cerulean blue, a little bit of cerulean blue. I'm not really bothered about too many clouds or anything, but I'm going to try and paint round some of this tree trunk. I'm not bothered about some of the branches. If it starts drying off too quickly because you're in a hot climate, you can just use a little spritzer bottle, and that just keeps everything moving. And the skies tend to be bluer at the top if they're on a blue sky day, and paler towards the horizon. So basically just keep adding a little bit of water. You can go into some of these tree areas so you don't get hard lines. And then just to lift off some clouds, grab your paper towel, give it a scrunch, and then you can just lift some clouds off if you want. A few clouds in the sky. Little clouds at the bottom, bigger clouds at the top. If you're not lifting very well, some clean water on a damp brush and just give it a scrub around, wash your brush, take the water out, and it will lift out. You can then go in with your paper towel and it will lift out nicely. Try not to leave too much water on your brush because otherwise you're going to end up with back runs. And then you can just add a little bit of red light into that mixture and get some nice greys on the base of the clouds. Nice, warm, sunny, cloudy day. A bit more blue in that mix for these. I want them pale at the bottom. Down here. Just soften away. As much or as little as you want. Well, nice way of making clouds. And just soften some of those harder edges and leave it to dry because it's a painting not about the sky. But as always, watercolour will dry around about 30% lighter because the water evaporates. And so if you think it's perfect on the paper, I can near enough guarantee it will dry too light and you'll want to go in and do another wash. So I'm going to grab the hairdryer. Okay, so fairly dry. I want to just put in this path. I want it nice and bright. So a little bit of raw umber. A bit of a muddy path, and then a touch of cadmium yellow just to brighten it up a little bit. And I'm just going to run now, keeping my brush strokes horizontal. I want the back to be lighter and the front slightly darker. I'm going to darken that in a minute, but the horizontal strokes help it to feel like it's sat in the ground. So I'm just going to add a little bit of neutral tint and some burnt sienna into there because I want the warmth still. And then I'm just going to add a tiny bit of Payne's Grey into here, just to darken that foreground up ever so slightly. We'll be putting in some shadows and things, so I don't want to overdo it, but I do want it to feel like it's laid down on the floor and coming forward. I use my paper towel just to lift a bit of light out of there. Nice technique, just dragging straight, firm stroke while it's still damp lets you just lift a bit of light across the thing. And I'm just going to grab my little spritzer bottle and I'm going to, from an angle, I'm just going to spritz into that, and the little droplets will just make a nice texture, particularly in this dark where we put the Payne's Grey into the mix as well. It will just add a bit of texture onto the front. So whilst that's doing its stuff, I'm going to go in and work on the tree. So I'm going with the raw umber on this side because it will harmonise into the pathway, and that's the light colour. I am going to go in with an ink pen afterwards, so I'm not overly bothered about the little tiny branches. I'm just thinking about these big branches and getting them in and roughly in the right proportions. You could switch to a smaller brush if you find that helpful. I quite like working on a large brush, so I'm just adding a little bit of phthalo blue into this brown to create a nice sort of browny turquoise colour. It's a phthalo blue green that I use, and it's quite a nice colour for the shadow side. Of trees. Okay, so I have washed my brush, taken some of the water off, and I'm just putting a little bit of a highlight into the tray. So working the tray with little tiny sort of horizontally marks the direction that you think the bark's growing. When you look at the tray, that you can see, about like that. I'm just going to take that off, so that you can see sort of some of that texture. So that's like the middle tone, and it blends in nicely. It makes a really nice tree colour. So I'm just going to add a little bit of Payne's Grey into this mix. And I'm just going to run that into the tray. So that branch is coming now out of the trunk. You can definitely see it's coming out of the trunk. The same with this one. I want it to come out of the trunk and be connected to the trunk. Same with that one. So I've kept the sun on the same side, I suppose, coming this way. So the same again, just wash my brush. And just play with a little bit of lifting and texture work onto the tray. And again, I will get my pen out, so we'll darken that. Just going to soften this base now to put it into the ground. I don't want that tree to feel like it's sort of just stuck on the surface. I want the tree to feel like it's belonging. There we go. So you can see how quite easily and quickly you can get the tree involved, and we can go back once it's dry. We can go back, so I'm going to give that a little bit of a blitz with the hairdryer again. Okay, so we're dry. I like how some of these textures really work nicely here. So time to mix some greens, so cadmium yellow and whatever blue you fancy. I'm going to probably use a little bit of phthalo blue in this one, which is really nice. A bit of cadmium yellow and ultramarine will make a very different blue. All in the same pan because they're both based in cadmium yellow. And now I'm going to do a third, which will be cadmium yellow and turquoise. To make a nice bright green. Okay, so I'm going to show a little hint and tip. If you've got a little scourer sponge, I suggest that what you do is you cut a chunk off it. I think I got about 5 for 16p at one point. I think I've got hundreds of these. And then just mess with it so that you've got an uneven surface. You just have to sort of pluck at it. I've done plucking at this. So I'm going to start with my bright green. So just dipping the sponge into the greens, and I'm going to just pour base layer, just changing the direction. If you find you've got a line, either pick away at it like that. There we go. And it's a really nice way of mark making without feeling like you've got hundreds of leaves to make and do. So, classic way of working. We've started with the lights. I'm also going to put some of that light colour on some bushes around here, because it's up there, and a bit of some grasses and bushes there. I can just pull it across and it sort of builds that sense of a bank. Really, really easy technique. So I'm going for my middle ground green now. I'm just going to layer up a little bit of shadow. I don't want to obliterate that nice brightness, but I do want it to feel like it's got leaves on. And I'm going into that bushy space again. And I'm going to go into this bushy space. As well, just to start to build that up. So I'm going into my darker green now. So I need to think where my shadows are. Okay, just gradually building up those darks. You can push it as dark as you want. But I do find it a really easy technique to start building up sort of tone and texture somewhere where you don't necessarily just want brushwork. So I'm going to just make this a little darker. So I'm going to make the same ultramarine and the cadmium yellow, which is what we were using for the dark, and I'm just going to add a little bit of Payne's grey into there. So it's a dark in the same sort of family. still with my sponge. Remembering this side's the dark, I'm just going to put a few darks around the base of those branches, but I want to put the dark leaves on this side. I'm just going to put some darks just into here. Grab a brush, pick the same dark up. I'm just going to take a piece and put a bit of a mixture of these greens into there, because I don't want it to be too in your face, but I also want it to link in. Okay, so I'm going to just mix up some viridian green and some ultramarine to make like a bluey greeny colour. I'm just going to add a little bit of cadmium red light into there just to knock it back a little bit into more greyer tones. And I'm just going to drop under here and do sort of the front of a bush that's maybe going across and down that path. Water in my brush. I'm just doing some distant bushy shapes. Running the same colour up the tray, because then that again encourages to think that it belongs in the area. Mapping some of this dark colour into this sort of foreground. I'm just going to create like a bluey browny colour for this brush here. We'll just bring it a little bit more forward and then add some viridian green into there. Take my brush, water on my brush just to soften that into the background. Now I'm going to drop in some really, really bright pink into there as if it's a big rhododendron bush, because I think this just wants some bursts of colour. Happy with that. So time to just grab the hairdryer, because if I leave it, this will just bloom and become huge. So grab the hairdryer and I'll be back. Okay, so we're dry. These have worked really nicely. I really like those. I like how they're drawing the eye to the tree. And that tree is really beautiful, so that's good. So I will do the pen work over the top, which will be fine. So now I'm at the same point as we were here. I'm going to mix up that beautiful bright shadow colour. So a little bit of magenta, or dark some purple, or some alizarin crimson. and then some ultramarine blue for a nice bright shadow colour. So I need to be fairly brave, so I'm just going to drop some shadow colour into the tree. And then into a shadow of the tree coming, so it's sort of behind here. So I'm going to drop some shadow colour into the base of here, because the shadow would run across the path. And then I'm going to pretend there's been a tree here, so I'm just going to drop, keeping the same sort of angles, a couple of shadows of trees that are potentially there but we can't see them. Oh, I nearly forgot to join the shadow up there. Yeah, someone's got to join somewhere. So I'm just going to take my little brush and using it with just a little bit of water, just lift out some of that really darkness of some of those marks. It is a sketch, it's not, I don't even know where it is. Lifting a bit there, softening away a little bit. I'm going to just add a bit of texture to that. I quite like that one, that's really quite nice. So, time to let them dry, and then I'm going to just get my Faber-Castell fine liner on, both of them, which we can near enough see both on one, and then we can sign them and take them away, and then we've got two lovely little summery views, really, which is nice. Okay, so I'm going to just remove this masking tape, so you can see we've got, always remove it away from the painting. I didn't really want to lift that bit off, but never mind, we can rescue that, that's fine. So we pull it away from the painting, because if it tears the paper, at least it just tears itself, and not your beautiful painting, because that would be really sad. So always away. Got two nice little paintings there, and as I said, I'm going to grab my ink pens. So these are my ink pens that I'm using at the moment. You can use any ink pens as long as they are permanent. So I'm going to, so this is a 0.3. I'm just going to put a little bit of detail on some of these sails. And then around this walkway. It's a suggestion of things that are there, rather than it being an accurate image on it. And I'm remembering my light was coming this way, so I'm just darkening some of the sides of these fence post that I put in. And I'm just going to run some little marks across there and maybe into some of these trees. Keep your pen moving, and it just helps. If you're doing a mark, do it quickly. I'm going to call that a day because I think that's rather nice. So a little signature on that, that's quite nice. And if I get a little mount, that will look pretty, and hopefully it'll get somebody a new home. If you're interested in buying my artwork, I will drop a link to my folksy site. If you can't see shipping, particularly if you're living in Europe, please do message me. I'll put my email link up because there is a way of getting it to you. And then for this one, I just want to put some marks in across this path. What's the daisy? And then up this tree, particularly concentrate on the shadow side and the roots of the tree. I quite like the texture that's created. I don't think I need to put any little sort of sticky out. Maybe I'll do a sticky out branch or twig or whatever there. You can do whatever you want. It's your painting, Bob Ross said, so we're fine. Some leaves on this little rhododendron tree really quickly because I'm running out of energy. You could do it a lot slower than me, take your time, or you might want this sort of randomness as well. Quite like that randomness. And then I'm just going to sign it. So if you're interested in buying it, please check out my folksy site. Please folks, can you like, comment, share the link, do your do's, whatever we have to do on YouTube. But I hope you've enjoyed these two little paintings. This will look nice when it's mounted up as well. Wonder what we should call them. That'd be nice. I do. What are they called? You can give them a title. So there we have it. Two little paintings on an A4, and of a summer's day, which is quite nice. See you soon. Bye.